going on, guys and gals? CheFPV here, ATXRC Productions, Zero Ground FPV. But today, more importantly, we're going to be talking about or doing a build for BlackStar Drones. So BlackStarDrones.com, but before you go there, you might check out quadcopter.nyc. The reason being is Gannon over at quadcopter.nyc is kind of rebranding, coming up with his own label, and starting to get some OEM parts, as well as just building a full line around the name BlackStar Drones as opposed to just quadcopter.nyc. So big ups, thank you Gannon. Met this guy. He actually took me into his own house at the Liberty Cup when they invited me up there to do the race commentating. Got rained out, so we spent a lot of time at his place, and I helped him organize his shop and done some other things, and just got to know him really well. And he's just a great individual. He's one of the few individuals in this industry, as a vendor especially, that is more worried about being there and finding a spot that he can help facilitate the growth of the sport in the industry, from the pilot to the vendors to all the other outside spectating and all that. He has his hand in trying to be a part of all of it. But his biggest goal, I think, is kind of supporting the pilots at events and having the right hardware and the good hardware, the best hardware on hand and ready for pilots that need them. And then, like I said, building the new label, which is BlackStar Drones, and coming out with his own line of products, as well as supporting other product lines that are really great and stuff like that. Good example is one of the things we have on the table, the AirPix. This is, I believe, the AP-5. It's a cool little frame. I actually met these guys before Gannon did and introduced them to Gannon at the Liberty Cup. I forget from which country exactly they are. I apologize, from overseas. But they are from somewhere overseas. I believe Israel, maybe. And just a great group of guys. We're out there at the Liberty Cup. We're at a Drone Nationals, and asked everybody to take a look at the frame. You're actually seeing the same frame on Rotor Riot, where they did a Pick Your Frame edition. This was one of them. So really cool frame he sent me to build up. He sent me the Flyduino 24 amp ESCs, KISS, better known as KISS ESCs. So we're going to put those on this thing. We've got a KISS flight controller to package with it. The Team Black Sheep Unify 5, well, it's the 5.8, but this is the full pro version, the 5-volt version, not the high voltage version. So we'll put that in there. TBS Triumph antenna, my go-to also, but just great antenna, especially with the VTX. Runcam Swift, so we got the Runcam Swift up in there. There she goes. So we'll package that, and we'll put that together with the Unify Pro VTX. So we'll get all the stuff we need for it out. All right. And he's also got me the kit for wiring up the KISS ESCs. Great job with that. And the bread and butter, what do we need to power these things? So these are the BlackStar Drone 2300 2205. These motors are awesome, man. So these do look very similar and are very similar to the Brothers Hobby Tornado and the other versions of this variant you'll see. Without getting into a lot of detail, I'll just say this. Gannon contracted the guys at Brothers to actually OEM spec this motor for him. Came up with the design on the outside, all that stuff. And yes, Brother built it because they had all the hardware and all the know-how to make this happen. And then they started selling it to other people under other brands and stuff like that, and shopping it around. So all I can tell you is this is not made in the same Brothers Hobby facility. This is his version that he has told me he has patents pending internationally on design and other parts of the product. And he's getting these manufactured in a different facility now overseas in Europe. And just so you know, he's losing money on this because of all this issues. So yes, I support him and what he's told me, and after getting to know him. So I think that this is a great motor. I am using the Tornado V1. That was his version that he also hooked me up with while I was in New York. And I love that motor. It's a great motor. So I've actually already thrown a set of these on one of my copters, and another set's going on at Vendetta. This set going on this build. So here we go. So build videos are always hard to do. They take a while. You never know what's going to pop up. Different things happen. So you're just going to watch, hang out. I'll talk about little things here or there. what we will start with is how I always start all my builds. I'll wire up a pigtail first. I'll get that on there, and then I will start with the ESCs, and I'm going to wire all the ESCs up to the PDB. I'll do a test. Then I'll wire up all the other power sources that are needed to the PDB, like the VTX, the camera, and the flight controller. I'll stack that, and I'll get that all ready to go, and we'll power up again. And then once all that's powered up and everything's clear, we'll then take and we'll install the motors. We'll clip the wires to the right lengths. We'll get those installed, power up one more time, and as all goes well, hopefully we'll be able to test all the systems. And the only thing that I do not have is I don't have an RX. I'm actually sending this thing back to Gannon when it's done. So this is not going to get maidened or actually flown, really. I will get it powered up, double check that everything's working, and we'll get the flight controller fired up, test all the motors, get those directions right. But after that, really, Gannon's going to get it in his hands. He's going to get some pictures of it. They'll get it out in the field, tune it, I suppose, and get it flying. So there you go. Here we go. All right. Pigtail first. Dum-dum. Pigtail. Alright. These Maytech PDBs are actually, they're really tight on space as far as getting the wires all cleanly in there. But that motor didn't fall on an ESC. Alright. Let's set that aside, and now we're going to get up to wiring up these ESCs. So you'll notice I'm using the same line, and the reason why is it's just easier when it's all together like this, like the servo plug holds it together. Makes it much easier for just keeping them all together and sorted. So I'm just stripping and then pre-tinning again. So you'll also notice I don't have a fan blowing. I have one, but it doesn't make for very good video. So definitely recommend using a fan. You'll notice I'm not breathing whenever I'm soldering right in front of myself, so still probably not the best idea. Alright, so these are all wired up with signal, which is white, telemetry, which is red, and black is going to be ground, obviously. So because these are the 24 amps, you can run the telemetry to the flight controller, apparently. Never ran them, so I don't know. Still need to run power to each of these. For that, we're just going to basically repeat what we just did. So we got 4 of them. Now we are ready to... All right, I pre-tinned all the pads that I'm going to use. 5 volts for the, actually I may not even use that 5 volts. I don't know why. So ESC, 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 VTX, and I set that to 5 volts, and I set the camera to 12. And then the VCC pads here, so the voltage going in, that will actually run to the KISS. I set the 5 volt pads up thinking about using another flight controller, I guess, not realizing I'm using a KISS. So there we go, we'll get these tinned up. Remember I told you these Matex are really tight. It's really on these battery powers that, you know, you get really tight on it. Especially with these really thicker 12 gauge cables. So that's what I was doing there. I was being really careful just to make sure that I had nothing touching. I know it's not ideal to be adding solder to the joint as it's already attached, but really what I was doing was heating the full joint and just fluxing or adding some more in there, like I was pushing more in, flowing in. But ideally I would tin them a little better. One of the easiest ways to kind of get a better kind of solder joint there and make it to where it's not so tight is like this one here. You can see that's almost a perfect joint. I mean, I kept it really, really small as far as how much was shrink tube was actually sheared off. So that made it much better for it and easier and cleaner. So definitely I could have cleaned these up a little bit better by being a little shorter on how much I stripped away. But I think they'll work just fine. So now what we're gonna do is we will get the power for the flight controller wired up. So for that, this size. I always like to leave myself a decent amount of length on these because it makes for manipulating the other wires and the rest of the board a little easier. So once it's connected, basically for repairs and replacements and stuff, it makes it just, for me at least, easier. Alright. I also like to make sure they face the inside rather than out. Makes it also cleaner. So now we're hooking up the signal wires for the telemetry, the signal, and the ground over to the pads for the kids flight controller. Now remember that the layout is much different. So motor 1, motor 2, motor 3, motor 4. It's really important when you're wiring these because you don't want to have to go back if you're used to beta flight. All right. So we got motors 2 and 4 wired up on the back side. So now flip it. Spin it a little. Alright, so we now have everything wired up. The only thing left to wire up is going to be the VTX and the camera. So those are really easy to add. Obviously we still have to add the motors, but before we do that, sorry, my allergies are all over the place. We're going to power this thing up and hope there's no smoke. Ready? Here we go. Moment of truth. So they all are hooked up. So now we need to take, let's see. Is the right one? Yep. And we'll get the shrink covering ready for these. And the reason why is we want to slide these on now. Out of the way. So we can do the motors, and when we're done, we can cover everything up, take a look, run everything, make sure it all runs, and then go back and change motor direction if necessary. So like that. Start doing motors. Alright, motors are attached, so we can now see how long we want the wires to be, which is not long at all. So we will click on short. all the ESCs are wired up. So we are now ready to throw another battery pack on it just to test. Here we go. Alright, so everything is loading up on the KISS flight controller software. Again, here we go. We're going to power it up. Everything appears to power. So we're good there. So before we start locking stuff down, we need to finish up the wiring. So to do that, alright. So we now have VTX, we now have cam. Now we can set flight controller down for its final time. All right, so there she blows, all ready to go. Take our cam. All right, so it goes in there like this. This. Now we need to start. And I tell you what, I'm usually not a huge fan of green on quads. I don't know why. The only green quad that I've ever had and I actually really liked was my Sasquatch Labs Shuriken. This is actually though pretty cool, man. I do like this one. Not too shabby. I will say the only issue I'm probably gonna have is getting the VTX squared up where it should be. So I think what I'll do is I'll there's not really any good options. The problem is the SMA connector on the Unify. So I'd like to do get everything buttoned up, and then I'm gonna have to figure that out. This frame though is pretty cool. Definitely unique in its own way of construction and how it goes together, shape, all that stuff. It does have some characteristics from some other copters, you know, not that I've seen one in person that much, but everything that I've seen of a Alien or the Martian, whatever, you know, the Alien I think is the original one. Oops. In there the right way, I didn't set it in right. There we go. I didn't have the camera pod sat in there. Even the way the camera pod sits, the way that it's designed, I mean, it's similar to other things. But I would also say this thing is unique enough on its own right to not call it any kind of clone or anything. I mean, it definitely has its own unique vibe to it. And I think for the guys at Rotor Rights who have chosen it, they can't obviously think it's much of a clone of at least the Martian, or not the Martian. Martian is the pun. Alien. But there you go. It is complete. Interesting little frame, cool little design. Appreciate Gannon letting me work on this thing and build it. I will definitely tighten up a few things, get the VTX mounted in a better spot, figure out exactly how I'm going to kind of get that solid mount. I think what I'll do is I'll go off the edge here between the standoffs with some zip ties, but not too sure. Besides that, though, man, really like it. And again, thanks to everybody involved. And I can't wait to, do another one. Fly safe, fly smart. Fly BlackStar Drones. Peace.